Look at this shit.
What does it sound like?
So essentially they're motor oscillators. I mean, it sounds warm and a bit crazy. Like, it's really beautiful.
You should play something on here. That's sick. When you have two people who come from different worlds, I think at the end of the day, it's all a love for music. That sounds so sick. That's crazy.
Great, I know. I think what people might not know about this record is that most of the songs started by me playing Miles a piece of beatless ambient, and then him literally just writing a song in about 20 seconds.
Some crazy drums over some of those melodies. I was like, oh wow, this shit can go to places no one's heard, ever.
We've heard both of these artists go to places no one's heard ever, but together, yeah, it's something very new, which is why when it was announced, quite a lot of people were scratching their heads. But if you spend any time with both James Blake and Lil Yachty like we did when we filmed this conversation, you realize they have an enormous amount of fun figuring it out. And their chemistry is undeniable. You know, as well as making an album, they could probably star in an all-time buddy movie franchise. All right, let's get into it. Myself, James Blake, and Lil Yachty. It's not weird at all. We're just talking about the future of music. All of it.
Tight.
That's a beautiful bag.
Yeah, I like. Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You've moved on. You've got this. You're in a stealth wealth phase.
Yeah, kind of. It's just more so when I come around James. It's a lot more arrogant looking when I'm around him. I've had like 7 chains on and 4 bracelets.
He feels sorry for me.
You have to dial it down.
No,
well, clearly, because did you see the post he put when he was like, I mean, even James, that photo, I mean, he doesn't have many followers, but.
Oh, yeah. That was kind of that was like an inside joke of like, he actually started that, talking about how much less followers he has than I. I never realized it until he brought it up.
But that's because we were talking, that didn't just come out of nowhere. That was because we were talking about promoting the record, and I was like, yeah. He was like, you should post it, blah, blah. And I was like, I mean, yeah, if you want to reach no one.
Yeah,
112 with a bullet.
Sweep it under the rug.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you really want this record to dive.
But you have influence in other ways.
In the sense I can get him to post.
Yes. You can get him in the studio, make an amazing album, and then he'll do the marketing.
That's my influence.
Well, I also just learned the difference between like urban culture and the rest of the world, right? Like it's like, for instance, like he may not have 700,000 likes on a picture, but he can always count on a show to sell out. Versus like hip hop is kind of all about like your first week numbers. It's very fast paced, fast marketing, fast lived content versus any other genre. I feel like, man, it's a gradual grind, a gradual uphill battle. And I said this once, and I probably shouldn't say this, but I think that it has to do with a lot of people in urban communities having a lot more time on their hands to A, judge and critique people in a positive or negative light. B, like, it's just, I think we care more about things the second they drop. It's almost like a FOMO thing where it's like, oh, Future just dropped. I have to hear that at midnight versus like a pop record or a rock record. It's like, I'll get to it, And when I get to it, it's going to be because I bought it and I purchased it, and then I like it. Okay, I want to go buy merch. I want to go to this and that. Versus like, oh, well, I might miss out on the line. I need to hear the beats. Let me listen right now. And in that case, if it didn't stream really well first week, and the mindset of the urban community is a flop, which I learned when I started working outside of my community, that's just not the case. Especially when you got Fred again doing like 8,000 first week, and then selling 4 arenas back to back in 6 minutes. It's like the math doesn't math. But see, it's another thing is that like people in the community don't genuinely take time to break things down. It's just like, oh, people, first week numbers is this, oh, it's trash, It's unfortunate. I hate the first week cycle. I don't hate it because I don't give a fuck. I do what I want to do, whether I sold 9 trillion or 9. I did it because I wanted to do it. But I just think that it's such a pest. It's like such a it's just like it makes the content not about what it is. It's like this was not made for the first week. Like at the first week, it's like, I just don't get it, you know? Like, shit's supposed to be forever.
I feel like you've been able to, you move fast and you also take your time simultaneously. And so that's why, even though you said in that message, this will come as a surprise, and you're right, the friendship comes as a surprise to a lot of people. But the idea of you being on a record like this, I think comes as less of a surprise to some people. Yeah, because I think you're establishing yourself as somebody now who likes to move quick. It's like, hey, we've got this project, here's Concrete Boys, we're moving fast, here's the freestyle, we can play in that world, and it's great in that community and in that conversation. But equally, you can go take your time and work under the radar and come out with like your last album and what you're doing with James here, and it just feels like you've been able to straddle both. Do you know what I mean?
I think it's just really amazing. And I hope that I'm like a guy that's genuinely breaking down walls and opening doors for like kids like me and this like man that thinks they can only do rap. You know, I think like I grew up like maybe even growing up and giving other genres a chance, you know, like I hope so many people as this project go and listen to James Blake who never heard of him and like, oh, this shit is fucking sick, which then could open up a door for them listening to this person, then that person, then your palette is just so wide. And
isn't that the point of curious collaboration, is to try to, you know, bring worlds in and create something new?
You know, I think to an extent, maybe from a label side, but I think when you have two people who come from different worlds, I think it's just at the end of the day, it's all a love for music, you know, and a respect for one's creativity or brain. But I think at the end of the day, me and James, our connection, like unspokenly, is we both live and die music and adore it.
I've spoken to two artists this year, Yachty, who have said this about you. You know, Cuddy said the same thing to me at the start of the year. He feels he has a strong chemistry with you and loves to make music with you, and that it's a lifelong thing, that you'll always come back and find a way to make music together and create together. This feels like it's the same. And
so, absolutely.
And I really love this album. I mean, I've listened to it several times now, start to finish, and I think it's got some of your finest songwriting moments, if you know what I mean. Yeah. I think after playing Robots, where you took us into the dance floor and took us somewhere else again and reminded us that dynamics and tempo and urgency and emotion are a big part of who you are as a musician. This gets you back into a place where somehow with Yachty, you've been able to find your voice in another way. And I wondered, like, you know, when you realized that it was bringing something unique out of you, and it wasn't just, I can do this, but wait, I can do this differently.
Pretty much straight away, as soon as we started making songs. And I think partly it was to do with this conversation we had pretty early on, where Yachty was like, you know, James, you've made enough, like you've worked on enough rap records, let's make something completely different. And I was like, totally, I mean, what do you feel like working on? And I just started playing him. It's not that I assumed we'd make a like rap vocal collab record. I just didn't know what he wanted to do. So when he said that, I was like, great. Obviously the door's open for any type of thing I'm going to play him. So I just started playing him ambient things I'd been working on, actually from a similar era to the Robots era stuff. Like, you know, if you look around here, this is all just, you know, synths that I've made all that stuff on. And I was playing him some stuff like that, and then he had a couple of things that he brought in that kind of matched that mood. And then, you know, for example, Save the Savior, I believe. Is that right? Or Bad Cameo?
It's back. Oh, did we
Bad
keep
Cameo,
the
I think.
Song title with that name?
No, we didn't.
Yeah.
Well, we didn't need to agree on that.
Yeah.
But
it's funny because when you're talking about that, Bad Cameo is the one that immediately jumped to mind, because the dreamscape environment at the beginning is something I'm like, oh, I could stay here all day. And then I really got to the center of what the album is, which is it's an immersive experience. That's what
sick.
I took from it.
I feel that.
It's less of a songwriting experience or a dynamic performance. It's like, oh no, I'm supposed to just find myself inside this.
I believe that, truly. I don't know if that was our intentions, but I absolutely believe that when you listen to it in a whole, and you know, in hi-fi, that's what it is. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a. I'd say, I mean, sometimes you call things a headphone listen, but I like the idea that it's a big sound system listen, but in a different way.
Yeah.
But yeah, from the offset, it was just like there were no boundaries whatsoever musically, so we just kind of made whatever, and neither of us were trying to chart or do anything that we were, you know, there was no like, there was nothing cynical on any level about the process, i.e. I wasn't going, Yachty, give me what you did over here on this, or he wasn't saying, well, I love this song of yours, can you do something like that? Like, that was actually something I noticed we never did.
Ever.
Which is interesting, because I think that's something that very often in collaboration people fall back on.
Always, I think, almost.
Almost always people are hoping that the artist they're working with does something similar to what they love about a song that they've already put out.
Yeah. You can really hear it. Let's start at the beginning then. Let's start on first impressions in terms of creative before you even meet. I, like the rest of the world, got our first impression of you was like, all right, this guy's totally different out the gate. It's not, he's going to find his difference. He is different immediately.
A lot of people thought I was a one-hit wonder.
It still would have been one of the weirdest one-hit wonders of all time.
Yeah.
you know, if that had been your only musical statement, it would have actually got weirder.
I think people just hated our class of artists, 2016. You're talking about the beginning, right?
100%.
Yeah, I think a lot of hip-hop purists genuinely didn't understand the curve that hip-hop was taking, at a time, and the internet and just all these things that were playing such a big hand in the shift in hip-hop at the time. So it was a lot of confusion. But yeah, I never defined myself by the beginning of my career or any of my career. I never defined myself by anyone's standards or anything. I just kind of always follow my heart.
Yeah. When you started being aware of Yachty as a musician and an artist, what did it move you? What was the vibe?
Well, you know what? I'd heard Yachty's music before, like just out, and I'd liked a lot of his like solo songs and also songs with other people. Like there was like hearing him on collabs initially, and then going into his solo work. But I think the moment that I was like, oh, this is going to work as a collaboration, like for something, I've no idea what it's going to be, but I just know we've got to work together, was when he did his last record. And the opening track, just the energy of it, and it just made me feel light. It's just music that feels good.
We all did. We needed it. It came out of nowhere and was one of those moments when we realized that we needed to be there with you at that moment in time. I know you made it for other reasons, but was there a part of you that started to recognize, well, this music's going to do more for me than just satisfy my soul. It's actually going to create lots of different avenues and doors in the hallway of creativity where I'm going to be able to try new things because the way people were responding to it,
I definitely didn't. I never thought of it like that, but I just thought of it again like another part of me that just genuinely loved to create, and I was excited to be able to maybe gain respect from more music lovers, in the world who just appreciate good music, and risk taking.
That's the thing that I think it was for me, because I already respected you as an artist in the genre you started in. Like, to me, the music you were making already was amazing, and I think lyrically you stood out, energetically you stood out, and I just felt like every time your voice came on something, it was like, oh, I just knew there was going to be a level of quality to it. And I also got a sense early on that some of the kind of genre associations and the kinds of ways that some people felt about that genre were reflecting on you unfairly. And I could see that there was someone unbelievably special that just happened to make this kind of music, and it's also a music that I love. So
it was one of the great 180s of the last 10 years.
So crazy. Let's Start Here was called 180 before I changed it to Let's Start. It was called 180 at first, and then I changed it to Let's Start.
I'm not surprised, because you probably felt you had to spell it out.
Yeah. Well, at first I was just kind of nervous. Like, at first I wasn't going to put it out as Lil Yachty. It was going to be under C.V. Thomas, which was an alternate ego that I had created, and because I just was so like nervous that like people would be like it's just the track record of rappers pivoting. It's not like a successful track record. It's very few who tastefully dipped water in a different pond.
I mean, Andre 3000 is a good example. Even like back in the day, like if you look at the switch into, Speaker Box and those kind of albums, it's just like he never stopped evolving. And even now when you're looking at like a woodwind record or a flute record, it's like that. It's part of the same spirit of Andre that we're seeing, and I think it speaks to the limitation you felt that you would feel like you needed to do it under a pseudonym.
Yeah.
Which I'm really glad you put it out under your own name, because I think that sends a message and says, like, as long as it's great, it can exist in the same catalog of great shit.
Absolutely.
Well, it's all you. And I think that's what people are getting now, is they're buying into you. And so that brings us back to this album and what it means to you. How has making this album changed you? How are you a changed artist coming out of this experience?
I think I have a better understanding of quality, you know, and I feel like he pushed me to, he didn't push me like physically, like told me like do better, but like just being around and experiencing him work pushed me to try to have reason in my songwriting, and to just live up to the quality of James's catalog. You know, I didn't want, like I was like on some, I didn't want to put a project out and then his fans, you know, be upset of me kind of slaughtering like all of the, you know,
I mean,
the
that could never
discography.
happen. That could never happen.
No, but I do understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
Like pushing yourself to connect to the music in a way where
Just to be as great as everything that he has done, you know?
Appreciate that, man.
No, seriously. I wanted to make sure he knew how serious I was, because I and myself have worked with so many artists who are just so unserious and don't understand true effort, or just don't apply themselves. You know, it's so easy to say, yeah, man, let's make a project, man, let's work, let's do an album, let's do a mixtape. But to genuinely apply yourself and show up and devote time, you know, because it's my time and his time, that we spent to create this child, pause, and just really wanted to show that I was there. And this was as important to me as it was to him.
it says less about the value it creates after the fact,
Yeah.
and more with actually just being completely present in the process.
Well, we just never once had a conversation about what happens after. It was always just what we liked and what we felt was right. We never was like, oh man, are we gonna go number one, or are we gonna, like, we never had that conversation. It's just like we fucked with it.
We knew that wasn't going to happen because I'm involved. But we had definitely conversations about the ideas of
The British humility at play here, Boat.
Well, I think he's gonna get me. He's gonna possibly help me get my Grammy. So we don't want to speak too early.
That's what I'm trying to say. You have influence in different ways, my man. You may have a very small social media following, and granted, it's very small.
Grain of salt.
I now take pride in it. I'm actually trying to decrease.
You're trying to lose fans.
I don't know if you notice all the shit I've been saying recently. I've been trying to like turn people off.
We might get to that. I wanted to ask you how you've changed, because both of you, and we're going to get to collaborations in a second, because I'm sitting in front of two there's difference between prolific and productive. Prolific's fine. As you said, we can make music all day, whatever, but is it going to be a productive collaboration? Will it stand the test of time? Both of you do both. You work with people, and it generally ends being something of real value, and people want to do it again. So having worked with a lot of great people, how did you change doing this? How are you a changed creative?
I'd say like before we even met, I decided not to do many more collaborations.
What was the purpose behind that? What was the thinking?
Well, my thinking was, in most sessions, I don't like enjoy it that much. I think it's like there's a lot of great artists, but are they going to make you laugh? Are you going to actually have a good time?
Yeah.
Like, are you actually going to form a friendship that is like, you actually want to see them come into the studio? It's like, I mean, it's like, there's a certain point in your career where you're like, well, I don't have to do this. You know, I'm not trying to cross-pollinate fan bases and fucking get, like, there's no A&R moves anymore. Like, I'm just making music. Not that like there really ever was, but now I'm like, how can I preserve my space? How can I like be like only have fun? And we just kind of, I mean, our sessions are 99% unserious. Like, this is probably the most serious conversation we've ever had, I think.
Yeah, it is.
Which is that's not a, it's nice, it's a change. It's refreshing, actually.
Very unserious people.
And then, the album is like beautiful and not, I wouldn't say serious, but it's gorgeous, and it doesn't, you know, we're not like making jokes on the
No,
record.
you've been way more morose on record before. It is
Yes.
beautiful. It's actually way more wide open.
Yes.
And way more arms open
Yes.
than some of the stuff I've heard you making in this ilk before.
Yes. Yeah, and you know that's partly to do with Miles, and I think our sort of chemistry from the start was very kind of light, and the music needed to feel. And I was talking to him a lot about like high vibration music, you know, like, and I've been talking about that since I did Robots actually, which was just this idea that music, you know, in sonically and thematically and all that, it's like I've placed more value in it, kind of making me feel good at the end of the day. And I think that's what I got from Yachty's music, and I think that's just kind of been the natural thing. But as an artist, I think at the end, you know, like of this collaboration. Well, I say the end of it. I mean, I know we'll.
Yeah, it's not even a collaboration
like,
anymore, right? It feels like it's a thing.
It feels like we'll just probably keep. I mean, you up for it?
I think so.
Yeah, cool.
Feels like it's a self-titled album almost.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I really was pushing for trying to get us a band name.
Bad Cameo.
Yeah, well, we just said it.
I
on
do
our,
think
our
Bad
names.
Cameo is a pretty good band name.
I think so.
Mm.
A pretty good bad name.
No,
Yeah.
no, pretty good band name.
It's a
Bad
pretty
Cameo.
it's a pretty bad band name, which means it's pretty good.
I think so too.
Yeah.
Just Bad Cameo, the album Bad Cameo, first song Bad Cameo.
Who knows? Yeah.
Literally.
We might look back on this as the moment that we had a billboard that we just put up on the way to Coachella, and it
I saw
says, yeah,
The mostly anticipated album of the year.
Yeah.
which I actually went on the comments on some of there was an article, and I'd say about 90% of people didn't understand it.
I know.
Did you see that?
Yeah. A lot of people like, no, we are not anticipating this. I
They
thought
are
it was
like,
funny.
it's not, yeah, it's like, how could they say this is the most anticipated
I
album of the year?
know. It's fun.
That's why they missed the lead.
I knew it was going to happen. That's why I thought it was funny. That's why I
I-
wanted to do it.
So to be fair to us stupid people, can I just like put a counterpoint in front of you? I'm in a hurry, right? I'm trying to get to the festival.
Right.
I'm like, oh yeah,
No,
what did
this
it
is
say?
this is a picture
Yeah.
on a phone that they can.
Oh, I thought you were talking about the billboard.
It's a stationary JPEG on Instagram that they can read over and over again, and they just couldn't
They couldn't figure it out.
figure it out, which I just thought I just overestimated.
I didn't.
Well, now you have to
People.
now you have to stand by the statement that it's the most anticipated album. Of the
I mean,
year.
I definitely think it'll be the prettiest
Yeah.
of the year.
In terms of what I've learned, I think what people might not know about this record is that most of the songs started by me playing him a piece of kind of like beatless ambient, and then him literally just writing a song in under 20 seconds. It was crazy. He'd just say like, yeah, I got something, and then just go in and, you know, like Missing Man came out in like 10 minutes. No, like I didn't have to write a single new melody. I didn't have to write, I just kind of like thought, how can I develop lyrically, how can I develop this so that I'm bringing the song forward, you know, when I come in. But I was just so stunned by like the quality of the songwriting and the speed of it. And to me, I think that's something that people might not realize about Miles is that like, yes, he can come out and like rage, and like the whole, you can see some of his shows, like the energy of his shows is insane, but also you put a different style of music in front of him and he'll just like write the most beautiful song you've ever heard. And that was a really cool moment, because I was like, well, that blows the roof off any expectations and any kind of like possibilities I thought we'd have here. I was like, wow, okay, so you're going to outright me, and then now I have to bring my level up. And what you said earlier about me doing some of my best songwriting on this is like, that is a testament to his songwriting, if anything.
What a beautiful position to be in. I mean, I saw you at Flog Noir. Wonderful.
That was
great. Yachty jump up and down. It's
It was crazy.
And then I watched the stream from Coachella. So yeah, doing this album at the very least must have given you even more confidence vocally that like, I know where to go to get some emotion that doesn't exist in the melody. It exists in the performance or in the sentiment, in the feel.
I definitely know confidence is the word, because like imagine like singing alongside him, so it's not
Right.
You know, it's
The
not
confidence is what you hear. It's not what you necessarily have to get it.
Well, I mean, I think it was just I started to really lean into the differences that complemented us. You know, like I am me unapologetically, and he's him, and when it's together, it's just like really cool. You know, so I just tried to like really make sure I opposited him in the best way possible. You know, we never got on and tried to like be the same person, you know, and that's what I thought was really sick about it. Also, the production is so high; it's really hard to fuck up. I feel like, man, it was just such great instrumentation that it was the words just really flowed. They had the beats alone have a lot of production. I mean, a lot of emotion. You know,
we should also shout out Dom Maker as well, who we made this with. Because I mean, I've done, you know, majority of my last few albums with Dominic Maker, and he
is the shit.
He's incredible, and he just like he'd come in and just spark something out of nowhere. Like you know, when you're in a session with Dom, he'll just sit at the desk, and occasionally, and he just knows exactly when to play. Like
something
we'll have
stupid.
just finished like some other idea, and then he'll just wait a minute, and then he'll just play the craziest thing you've ever heard, and then you'll be like, oh my God. Like, because sometimes with a session, I just don't, you think you've got nothing left, and then you hear, so in fact, just in general in music, like when I'm making music, I just feel like I haven't got any more ideas, and I can't think of anything to say, and I don't, maybe that's it, like maybe I'm never going to make a good piece of music again. And then I hear something, and it sets off a chain reaction in my brain, and then something comes. But it doesn't. You need those catalysts, and Dom has become like a resource as a catalyst. Like he just sort of, I don't know, he just strikes when you least expect it, and then you've got a song in an hour, and you're like, oh shit, like that came out of nothing.
There's a curiosity in this album that I think speaks to both of your desire to keep searching for new ways to be inspired, new things to do. What else is inspiring you individually right now that's really feeding that curiosity, that's allowing you to go to do some of your best work together? Where are you placing your thoughts right now?
Like I said before, like I'm only taking on collaborations that feel fun. If one session goes by and I just didn't have the best fucking day, then I don't do it again. And that's kind of led to some interesting, because once you clear once you sort of clear the deck, the concept of sort of not being busy at all is okay, in the sense of, you know, I was doing a lot of things that maybe it kind of would sort of drain me in a way, like, and then ultimately, yes, I was busy and I was technically successful in that, but you know, it's like I wasn't getting the fulfillment I was looking for, and I think I basically just stopped being busy and stopped accepting things and stopped taking on new projects and stopped it. And then that creates space for things to come through that I really genuinely loved. And obviously working with Miles was one of them. And then recently I started working with a band called The Joy from South Africa.
They're amazing. Has James played you any of this?
No, I never
5
heard
singers from South Africa, primarily a cappella up to this point.
Yeah.
I guess this breaks that mold. Yeah. Incredible. They just went on with Doja at Coachella, and just an incredible collection of individuals.
Yeah, and just like one of them like speaks pretty good English. There's like, but for a lot of it is just purely us communicating through music, I mean, mostly. And it's really special. And because obviously it's such a different style to anything I do, but I can join in with a vocal group. And it's this kind of thing, I love doing harmonies. I build my own harmonies in my tracks all the time. So it's kind of, it's a way of exploring the harmony thing, but in the room, not just building, you know, one by one harmony stacks, like, you know, and all of us just looking at a screen. This is, you know, like
searching for your role.
6 guys in a room all singing together. So that's been really fun. I would say, like, the most naturalistic version of like collaboration for me is basically what I want. And I think that goes for any genre. It doesn't matter what we're making. It's just a matter of like, are we having loads of fun doing it? And and that I guess brings us back to this record, because I think this is probably one of the most fun I've ever had making a record,
100%.
like kind of easily.
100%. Without even thinking.
Yeah.
It was like, it was never felt like anything other than recess.
Literally, yeah. Never felt like a chore at all.
Does it clear the table for you a bit? Do you now know there are things you don't really feel encouraged to go back and do again, that in your heart you feel you've done? And
well, I think I have better. Well, I kind of had before this, but just have certain standards when it comes to collaborating at this point. It's like I've collabed to understand what it feels like to be both holding your end of the, doing your end of the project, So I think it's just like I got better. Either that or it just make it a lot harder for me to respect other artists, because it's like, oh man, this doesn't feel like that did. So
it's an interesting time. We're on the precipice of something fantastical. I wouldn't say it's fantastic, but it's definitely a great unknown. We're watching the ways that music reaches an audience now change before our very eyes, and even how music gets made and what the platform is going to be when people hear it and what they expect from it and how they contribute to it. There's a million questions now that remain unanswered. So let's be open and let's be excited about it. But at the same time, you're a step ahead and have altered the way that you're going to release your music now on your own terms. You made a statement online. It was well received by artists and by real music fans, and it traveled accordingly. And then you found a new outlet for yourself and made a change, a fundamental change, and you stood by what you said. You left the label business, and now you've decided to back yourself. How has that been?
Yeah, a bit scary, but after 11, 12 years on the label.
Can I ask you quickly, hold that thought, what the psychology of being on a record label is when you leave it, how it makes you feel different? Because it is a psychology, there is a safety attached to signing your first record deal, is there not?
For sure.
Yeah,
I think, the safety of it is similar to a bank loan. It's a kind of short to medium term financial security with the obvious benefit of marketing, certain things, tour support, hopefully, certain things that are basically covered when the money's needed. It's available, hopefully, if you're on the right label. That can make being an artist much easier in the sense that you can just focus on the music and you can blah blah blah. And actually, for the most part, what that ends up doing is making people a lot less. I'd say it really stops you learning about the industry and what's actually happening. Yeah. So it's like previous to my current management, I mean, I hadn't really ever had a conversation with my PR or marketing or whatever. It's like I just wasn't privy to lots of conversations that were important about my development. And there are sort of ways in which the independent mentality forces you into like learning about, all sorts of things that you never would have otherwise figured out.
Both of you are very good at marketing who you are in your own way. And I want to get to that place of like, okay, how is that changing? And from within the artist conversation, because that's what I think we need to better understand, Bo, as well, is what the artists truly think about what it takes to put music out now, and what your aspirations are, and how you feel it's best to reach an audience and whatnot.
Sure. I feel like she's right there. She's scared to come in. I really need those.
Peanut?
Yeah. So, I'm just be quite frank. I ain't never really relied on the label to move my records.
Yeah.
In today's time, I am a fan of the internet. A internet kid. I studied the internet, and I'm just big on community. Internet communities are larger than anything in today's time, and communities spread like wildfire, So does the internet. So I just have really learned how to market myself on the internet.
Yeah, you're brilliant at it. It's definitely something that I've been like watching him and being like, wow, that's brilliant. Like whatever the method is, and it's always natural, and it's always just like something he does just from his own mind. I can't, you can tell with Miles that there isn't like a team of people like thinking of ideas for like ways to market him. It's really off the cuff and like natural, and really effective. But I think that's kind of, it's funny because Mars has actually got an independent, almost like such an independent spirit, but is signed. And I think that's what I would encourage, like whether you're signed or not. I just think having that, like developing those instincts is just so important for artists.
Which starts
in
with
general.
knowing yourself.
Yeah.
Knowing yourself as an artist, knowing yourself as a person, knowing what you want and do stand for, and having purpose, whether people see it or not.
And that was the principle that helped you through those early days when everybody fundamentally didn't see you for you.
I just believed in myself. No matter what no one thought, I had a real love for music.
Yeah.
Genuinely, whether it came off like that in the beginning or, felt like I was playing around or joking or wasn't serious. I've always had a love for music because of my father. So I think I got obsessed with people taking me serious as an artist and respecting my craft. But also I fell in love with the idea of making music and just the limitless opportunities when it came to creating music. Mm-hmm. I always wanted to be better. I was never content. Mm. No matter how much money I made or anything, you can always like do something cooler. And I believe that I genuinely had even now, have so much ahead of me, such a bright future, and I just don't know where it'll go. But it's fun, it's really fun. Just trying. Enough people don't try in this world. Genuinely, and that's not even just musicians, just in life. People are so content and stagnant and are afraid of risk that they don't try, never act on. We need more active people, more active dreamers, more active, just independent thinkers who want to do something because it is solely what they believe in.
Yeah, and I think if you're wondering why more people don't do that, if you have a success and wealth obsessed culture, then you de-incentivize risk and you de-incentivize creativity. And I think we're in a sort of late stage capitalist version of the music industry. And right now, the only reason me and Yachty can make this album, this kind of album, is because we're both already successful. If we weren't,
Absolutely.
then this would be a huge risk. And probably both of us would be like, let's postpone this until we put our pop record out or whatever.
Absolutely.
And so in order to get people to listen to you, you've kind of got to join the ranks, essentially. And I think the reason, part of that is because of some of that stuff I've been talking about recently, which is that, I started that that conversation has been going on way before me, but I started my sort of tweets and Instagram messages about that, all from the perspective of just being paid fairly, right? And I think that got some people's backs up in some ways because it's like, people are already paying. People are paying their subscriptions. People are paying money for music, right? The issue is that firstly, artists aren't all, so it's not proportionally, your subscription is not proportionally distributed to the people you listen to, right? So that's a big part of it. Secondly, it's not really this wasn't ever to blame the consumer. This was to just point out that the industry's fucked. The thing that I have come to sort of realize is that one of my biggest issues with it is that the format limits creativity. And how I see streaming services now is the place that the artist puts out the music they think they should put out. And how I envision a platform in the future is the place that people put out the music they wanted to put out. Because, you don't make music in a vacuum. You've got to constantly factor in what are the new, what's trending, what's the new genre that, if you want to be actually successful, you want to really play the game, which is most people do, right? It's you want to make some money, you want to actually sustain yourself, then you're going to have to fit into these narrow categories. And that's where we're at right now, is that, and that ultimately it's like, I think the listener's suffering, just as much as the artist, because ultimately they're not getting the artist's best music. Like when I'm in studios day in, day out, and I see artists and they play me their favorite shit from their record, and I go, wow, that's amazing. And then it doesn't end up on the album.
Why?
And it doesn't end up being the single,
Why is
because
that?
I don't know if you've noticed it, but because it didn't have the right length intro, or it didn't fit within the genre description of like their own catalog, or it wasn't. But it's like, but this is the best shit. Like what hold on. And I don't blame them. I blame the system itself. But that's what's going on. I mean, it's like most of artists' best songs are sat on their hard drive right now.
I think that there's a lot in the way of the pure decision making now. There's a lot of factors that have risen to the surface that were supposed to be just that factors, and I think a lot of them now are driving factors.
I mean, the algorithm is it's not even a choice. It's purely like statistical.
Well, I mean, I can say this because I work in a music service that is invested in real human beings, right?
Right.
Like, I mean, I went to a streaming service because I wanted to go where you're going and where the fans are going. And I have to be there where you are in order to do what I love to do, which is try to create a bridge between the two things, right? And tell stories.
Yeah.
And Apple, to their credit, have given me a place to do that. So we try to coexist with it. But I see the influence of the algorithm in everything now.
Yeah.
And I see the way that the record industry is panicking. They can't break albums and artists as much anymore because the tools have all fallen away, and it's all being consumed now by social media algorithms that cannot be controlled and don't want to be controlled. Can't be marketing tools. They don't want to be tools for you. So you're right. I think what Yachty says about studying the internet as a whole is a really powerful statement, because we keep subdividing it right into all these things, thinking they can be managed and used like a hammer or spanner, and it's really just understand your place in the environment as a whole.
I mean, a lot of people just came up learning how to, fix a vintage car engine, basically, and now it's like you just can't get to any of the parts. It's just like a fucking machine, and people don't understand how to. There are some people who know how to hack that.
But look how far we've come, though, right? When I was younger, I would say 95% of the artists making records didn't know the fine print of their deal, didn't know their marketing person, didn't know what the radio really thought, weren't putting in the work, as you put it.
You sound like me. That sounds like me for sure.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like a psychological thing of like, oh, I signed a deal, I'm good. Let me just focus on the music now.
Yeah.
And now we've got an artist like Yachty, who's really doing what Fugazi did, which is like, I know what my merch is, I know where the pressing plant is, I know how to do it, I know where the internet is, I know how to use it, I know all of this stuff, influencing young kids, I think, hopefully, to think the same thing. I think the internet is the tool.
Yeah,
100%.
it is. Yeah, it's not, this isn't I think this isn't to demonize the platforms, because I think they're doing that for me. But it's to say, like, it's already been done by so many great independent artists already for years, but I think it's just about a matter of publicizing those alternative methods and having it be part of something. I remember when streaming was like one part of the pie. It was like one slice of it. And it's just a matter of like everything coexisting. It's like we didn't, that I didn't realize that we'd enter a time when all your promotion and all of your kind of online content would be being done for free. I never realized that we would become like content creators for platforms that don't pay us. I just thought it was going to be like, well, you put up a picture of yourself and people like either like it or they just like move on, whatever. I think what we need is just a slight adjustment. It doesn't have to be, I mean, look, I would love it if it was totally different. But I think right now, what's realistic is that alternatives are made and they all coexist with what's happening right now. And we just kind of, we move on.
Absolutely.
So Bad Cameo, the band, the album, the tour.
I mean, we were talking about this the other week.
Right? That's something you can control and is fun and remains fun if you get it right.
And I think it'll be super fun to play.
Yeah.
Has it got you thinking? Are you visualizing it? Have you got images and ideas and things? Are you creatively ideating?
A little bit, not necessarily, but I just think as fun as we have in this room, sure we'd have on any stage.
For sure. I can also imagine, because Miles just knows so many great musicians, and I obviously have my band that I play with live already. And if we just put them all together, I mean, I just think that'd be just such a great band and a great tour party, probably.
It's 10 songs now. Would you try to create moments where you would be able to, you've got great songs that I feel influence this album, you've got great material that influences this album. Can you find a way to create a set that goes beyond the 10 songs?
I'm sure.
That'd be cool. That'd be cool.
Certain of it.
Yeah. Yeah, we could do some kind of exclusive like features on the old songs or something. That'd be cool.
Yeah.
Careful, you're stepping back into 2010 now, you gotta watch out.
I know, yeah.
It all feels futuristic to me, that's what I love about it. But,
Definitely, I think it's a futuristic project.
It's ironic to me because we're actually surrounded by a lot of machines that have been creating futuristic sounds for decades.
Yeah.
Right? That thing behind you is living and breathing right now as we speak.
Yeah, it's a serious hardware. He was the first person to show me these, what they do. Like, I always see him in the studio, but it's the first time I actually seen them work. It blows my mind that so many people make songs that sound like other songs because these shits are endless.
Yeah.
There's endless sound waves that I could just create. I mean, vocally and just sonically, you can do so much with music. That's another thing I learned working with him is that, bro, this shit can really go anywhere. It blows my mind so many people sound the same because this music shit can really also why make it Let's Start Here, but truly when I watched him produce was that, oh wow, this shit can go to places no one's heard ever. Just music. Like, you can really do some amazing things with all these little boxes.
Well, what's cool about Let's Start Here is that you experimented and achieved a result in an environment with musicians where you were able to charter a path into the unknown. That is doing that in a billion ways as we speak right now. And there is an accident waiting to happen just right now. It's the most in the moment I think you can get in modern music is to turn a knob and make sound there.
Totally. And we were running Miles through that as well. We were making synth passages, shit that ended up on the album. We were just going around the studio just trying stuff, and he was playing stuff, and we were just like, Well,
it was amazing.
It was great fun.
It blew my mind.
Yeah.
Just the things that you can do, and even versus hardware, just VSTs. Just on them. It's just true endless possibilities when it comes to
just experimentation.
Exactly.
And I think also, like having your ear as a producer as well, because I think like another thing that on this record is like me, Dom, and Mars are all producers on this, and I think the thing about me is I can throw so much paint at the wall, and I have like ideas for where to take things, but it's like without us two both signing off on moments, both his ideas of how to like get the best out of a moment, or like what about this like chop, or like this switch, or like what about those chords don't sound quite right there, or like maybe like what about if the beat dropped here, like it's like those moments like that you can tell that that's part of the strength of his music in general is like I think sometimes with performers, like people can just assume that what they do is they write the song and then they either rap or sing the song and then they go out on stage.
Yeah, perfecting the formula.
Yeah, and it's like that's sort of like the assumption about a lot of people, I think. But there's a 360 sort of understanding that both of us have.
Well, you've made there's something interesting here, because for you to say, I think you've made enough records with rappers for now, let's go somewhere we've never been before, says a lot to James's catalog and his reputation of collaboration, not just in the world of hip hop and R&B, but also, you've shown up on some of the most important albums in that genre, certainly the most successful in recent memory. I mean, having worked with him now in a very different landscape, but what do you think it is that's so attractive about what James makes that makes people want to be drawn to that environment?
Well, I think to the naked eye it's his voice, but to any true skilled musician, or probably wouldn't know after working with him, but it's just his ability to produce a record. That, hands down, is what it is.
Also, I think some of the influences on this record are like kind of unlike what people probably would have thought as well, like some of the breakbeaty sort of like underworldy type stuff, and it's all filtered through our thing. But I think, to me, I don't think a record like this exists. I think this is completely fresh.
It's tight.
It's completely fresh, and that was always the objective: do something that no one's heard.
You gonna do another one?
I would love to.
Me too.
Absolutely.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.